Peak week is not magic. I believe peak week should be based on data collection and leave you not rolling the dice on show day. And that's what I want to teach you today. What's up, everyone? My name is John Jewett, J3U University. We elevate the physique coaching standard. And today we're going to dive into my peak week for the Texas Pro, specifically one day out, covering how I went through my day and how this one day is you're really going to learn a lot about what you need to know from water, sodium, carbs, monitoring look, and nailing that on show day to be full and hard. So one day out. Why do I want to cover one day out? Because one day out is my final day at peak week where I'm really solidifying the look I want to walk on stage with. And this one day out, you're going to be able to see someone go from flat all the way up to full. And if you look at this graphic here, what you'll see is that flat, to understand it, is really when you're waking up in your most dehydrated state. And usually flat's going to be someone that's small and soft, and they're going to be light on the scale weight. Now, as someone eats and drinks fluid, that muscle is going to fill up and they're going to get fuller. It's going to push against the skin harder, and they'll get to a point where you're like full and hard at the same time. But if you keep going, you keep eating and drinking, that muscle will get as full as it can be, and then you start seeing more water underneath the skin as well. This is when you start getting spilled look. You're like overly hydrated, we could say. So one day out, I can watch this happen throughout the day as I'm getting someone food and fluids. And I start finding how much food and fluid do I see their best visual. And then if I find that, I can do the exact same thing on show day. And this is why one day out is nearly what you're doing even 2 days out and 3 days out. But a lot of times with those prior days, it's more about just dropping off fatigue. And finally, by this one day out mark, you pretty much have this set diet where you can get pretty predictive of the food that they're going to need and how much fluid. So this peak week now becomes this daily repeatable process of waking up, looking at the look, and watching them meal by meal and how they change. So I'm gonna pull up on screen here my visuals from Texas, and what you'll see is my one day out shots for a few meals. I took them before every single meal. I standardized this. It's in the same lighting every time, which isn't the best lighting now that I look back on this, but I blacked out behind me just so it's a little easier visually to see. And this is moving from my fasted look of 236.2, and then before meal 3, I was 238.8, and then by my bedtime, 241.6. So we're seeing about a 5-pound range here in body weight. And so what I look for in this is who wins the pose as a whole. Because you can have someone stay a little flat in a body part, or get fuller in one specific area, or lose condition in one specific area. So I don't want you to think as an entirety, they're flat all over, and that's a terrible look. Sometimes for some people, flat in certain body parts, we have to accept that to have enough condition in the body parts that matter, so the whole pose looks really good. And so we can look at this, like in my front shot, in the morning, not a lot has to change. We see as we get to like towards the midday and evening, what I usually will see is my chest gets a lot fuller. And that's why I really like looking at the most muscular pose. One area that I do like to watch is my midsection, because if I'm getting too much food and fluid, I might start seeing that get washed out or spilled. So that might be an area you might see come first. However, in these visuals, what you'll really see a little better is in the back shot. You can see my back gets a lot bigger. It's one thing that really comes to life a lot with more food. Then if you look at my glutes, you'll see there's more lines from the edge of the hip all the way to the crack. When I'm full, like really full blown, those lines fade a little bit. And so I lose condition. And there's a little bit of spilling that's happening because again, it's a range. You're getting full, you're starting to spill a little bit. You're going to sacrifice a little condition, but is it better for the overall physique look? And again, you'd want to go through all your poses to really see this, but if you had to put someone on stage, they're 5 pounds heavier, and you had minimal loss of condition lines, that would probably be the ideal look to go with. And so for me, I don't lose a lot of condition getting very, very full. So you'd say off these visuals, like, gosh, 241.6, that makes a lot of sense to go on stage with. And this tracks well. So we can look at my diet for the day, one day out, ended up being a total of 240 grams of protein, 800 carbs, 100 grams of fat, 175 ounces of fluid, and 6,000 milligrams of sodium. And so I start the day off, I have my weight before my meal, and as I go through the day, I will start moving up carbohydrate as I need to, and I'll also usually bring in fats about the same ratio, so carb volume won't get too high, because you do have to consider getting on stage with a waist that's too big. And so you'll see my diet throughout the day is very standardized. The water with each meal is 8 ounces, between each meal is 25 ounces, have the same amount of salt with each meal, and that way it is those things stay intact. And all I have to worry about is how I move up carbs and fats. And what you'll see is by that meal 3, I had 120 grams of carbs and 12 grams of fat, and I was at 238.8, which is a very good look for me. From 238 on, I could go on stage, I'd be full and conditioned. But what usually happens is I slow down my weight moving up. And that's will be an issue, is what we're about to talk about, is how do you get to on show day, right? If you're going to bet at 240 and you're going to wake up and go on stage, like how do you eat 6 meals and then go on stage to be that heavy again if you're going to drop back down? So I'm going to help you figure this out. So what I have to do is my next meal, I bump up 20 grams of carbs and add in 6 grams of fat. Then I look at my next weight. I only come up to 239 for meal 5. I add in 30 grams of carbs and another 5 grams of fat. Now I come up to 240.6 and seeing a bigger jump. I'm like, okay, I probably don't need to go as aggressively here. Repeat the previous meal 4, which still moves up my weight. So that's when I'm going to bed at 241.6. And what we can see here is this will start mapping out what I want to do on show day. Now for this particular show, I was going to go on midday. So that's something to know. So if I am seeing a good look midday when I'm eating one day out, I can pretty closely mirror that for the next day. And what I'll show you is this graphic here, which you can get an idea of what this would look like. So you can see literally as we wake up, in this one we're 220 fasted, and as you go up meal by meal, fluid by fluid, you get to that full hard look at 224, which is pre-meal 3. You keep going, by meal 5, you might even be a little spilled. You want to be, because guess what? You're going to drop back down to your normal body weight you drop overnight. So that's why I start monitoring body weight overnight. Am I dropping 5 pounds or 6 pounds overnight? That way I can estimate what I might wake up on show day, and I know if I should put more food in later or not, or eat overnight. But this is the case where you're going on stage at your normal time. You'd have your first 2 meals. You get up to your weight. Your same water's the same. You get on stage at 224. After that, you need to hold it. And that's where we would just reduce food and fluid to hold that look. Now let's talk about how one day builds on show day. So some situations here. Scenario 1. Your best look is evening and full. And that's me, right? The very far evening, like I look my best. So you'd want to take that knowledge that you know, and on one day out, you want to load heavier, either all day long if you already know that, or you could taper food up towards the evening. Preferentially, if I knew that, I would want to load heavy 2 days out and then not have to eat so much on one day out in show day and just wake up heavier already. So I'd want to eat. That's why you see me bumping food up more to where show day is a pretty limited amount of food. It's just more of a top off. Scenario 2, your best look is fasted at AM. You're crispy hard. You don't need a lot of food to get full. That's a little easier approach because you don't have to put much food in. You just have to hold that look. The harder one is when you're fasted your best and you go on in the afternoon. And that's just a case of, you're going to have to limit food fluid on show day to where you get to on stage. Now the easy scenario is your best look is 2 to 3 hours after your first meal or 2. And then you're going on stage kind of mid-morning or even right at the afternoon start. Then you're just having pretty much that same carbohydrate, fluid, sodium, and then going out on stage from there. But this is the idea that I want you to understand, is that you want to hold all these variables constant and just understand how to move carbohydrate and some fats, and that's all you'll need to do. And then water can taper with that carbohydrate adjustment you need to make on show day. For most people, that's enough to get them on stage and nail that look you found during peak week. Now, just some monitoring rules to give to you. Same lighting, same time, same poses. Make sure you're consistent in your evaluation. Don't have all of a sudden you're in the natural light, then you're backstage, then you have some like bathroom light, and you're taking them all over the place. Be consistent. Document consistently. Need to know your meals, your fluids, times, and body weight. Just keep a chart running so you can watch those, so you can look back and you know, okay, meal 3 yesterday, I was a lot heavier or I was a lot lighter. I might need to start adding more food up so I don't end up going to bed too light one day out. Or food's catching up to you. Right? Now you're heavier by meal 3. You have 2 more meals to go. Maybe I should start pulling back on food so I don't get too heavy and I wake up on show day heavier than I wanted to, especially if you're that person where your fasted look is best. Keep in mind activity as well. That's why I try to standardize just a step count throughout peak week and keep it low. But a lot of people might go from walking around a bunch 2 days out to just sitting in the hotel room 1 day out. That is a drop in energy expenditure. So something to consider. Usually tell people, hey, just keep a 5-minute walk after your meals for digestion purposes. And then lastly, just for food sources, consider digestibility and condensing down foods as small as you can so you can control your waste the best to your ability. So, peak week explained. It's not guesswork. It's not roll the dice. It's about data. Collect photos, your weight, understand sodium, water, carbs, and fats, and time, the time duration that you have these over. If you can do that, you'll nail your look on show day every time because it won't be a roll of the dice. This is exactly where we really shine in J3U, our level 1 course. Fully break this down in even more of what you would need to know for every day of peak week. So check out our course. It's so good and in depth, and I just hate people missing the mark on stage. So anyway, if you have questions on peak week or what I covered, leave them down below, and I will talk to you next time.